This is a special Dharma talk from Reno Buddhist Center. We're actually testing this streaming system because it looks like this weekend might be a little snowy on Sunday, and we want to make sure it works. Also, since it did not work last time, we didn't post this Dharma talk to the YouTube and the Facebook libraries. So, good evening, and welcome to Reno Buddhist Center. I'm happy to see you all here this evening. We extend special greetings always to new folks when we share a Dharma talk. Our Dharma talk this evening is about accepting your non-self. Non-self acceptance, which does not mean not accepting yourself. It means accepting your non-self. Does that make sense? According to the Anatta Lankava Sutra, the idea of self is an imaginary, misguided belief without corresponding reality. It is a harmful thought that produces harmful thoughts. This quote from the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying expresses the idea well. How mistaken the view that separates me and it, when the expanse of reality is free of division. How deluded we have been fabricating difference. How debilitating the view, dualizing mind and object, when the great body of reality is free from dividuation and distinction. We have failed to understand the nature of uncreated truth. How tormented an intellect, so bewildered, apprehending the uncreated truth with I, me, and mine. This evening, I will talk about the Buddha's understanding of the self. This seems like a pretty abstract thing, but each of us struggles in life because we misunderstand what we are, what self is. Talking about this is actually vitally important to our happiness and the happiness of everyone who lives with us. As the philosopher said, we are but whirlpools in a river of ever-flowing. We are not stuff that abides, but self-perpetuating patterns that perpetuate themselves for a time. The Buddha offers many detailed analysis of this. He looks at what we think we are and eliminates the parts that are not self. Quoting the sutra here, body is not self, feelings are not self, perception is not self, mental constructs are not self, and consciousness is not self. When you see this, you become detached from these things. Once detached, the passions of wanting fade. With passions fading, you are free. And being free, you know you are free. Unquote. This is an important insight that the Buddha came to after 6 years of intense study, bhavana, mental cultivation. Siddhartha, sitting under the Bodhi tree on that December full moon night, experienced a remarkable, liberating insight. He realized that everything observed was dynamic and ever-changing. He saw that everything arises and ceases, and that everything ceasing is an arising. He realized that there are no permanent beginnings or endings, and not in the physical or spiritual realms. Everything changes, so there is no fixed essence or ultimate nature, or no soul, none of Plato's forms. There is only a vast process of becoming, whose parts are labeled a thing in a moment in that vast whirlpool. The Buddha's great insight was that there is no static, permanent self to anything. Humans who talk of a soul are misunderstanding the continuously evolving pattern they feel as me. This seems simple, but it is profound. When we draw arbitrary distinctions between self and world, our actions become distorted. Recentering them on me. Alienation, frustration, and suffering, dukkha, are the unavoidable consequences of separation. But when self is correctly understood as just a loose construct of mind, a representation that navigates the vast matrix of being, many of those supposedly essential problems of life lose their urgency and their energy. All the air flows out of the suffering balloon. The Buddha's unique and really groundbreaking perspective created a revolution in understanding of what we call self, our place in the world around us. In Western culture, the word self is usually taken to refer to unique, inherent core identity, something at the center of each person. Used to be, they used the word soul for this, but it means the same thing. As with many beliefs, at first, it seems to be true, but when we examine closely, we realize that this is just an article of faith we have unintentionally subscribed to. It is deeply entrenched in Western scientific and philosophical traditions. For Americans, the reality of an authentic self is normally taken entirely for granted. What could be more real than me? Even though, when neurologists go looking for it, there is no place in the brain the self can be located. We think there must be a doer of the things I do. It serves to separate subject and object. It serves to demarcate self-identity, the very center of sovereign selfhood. We are individuals, after all. The selfie must be the pinnacle, the photograph kind, must be the pinnacle of modern misunderstanding about the true nature of self. We misguidedly search for happiness and joy in pride and self-admiration. If I could just take a good photo of myself, capturing me, the problems will be gone. But the problems are not gone. As more people think this, the problems are worse. In stark contrast to traditional Western views, the Buddha discovered that the self is just an abstraction of mind, that we get in the habit of reconstructing and reconstructing again and again over the course of our lifetime. In fact, we can observe and understand mental processes without any need for I or me at the center of experience. There is thinking, there is feeling, and there is perception. Newsflash: these activities do not require a substantial self, an owner to validate them. Self is only a linguistic convention, like the little blue stick at the supermarket that separates my stuff from her stuff. It is all stuff. But for some reason, I need to know what is mine. In reality, there is nothing authentic about the self, except that we believe in it. This great realization is at the heart of the Buddha's truth of anatta, non-self. Think about it. When you are truly absorbed in life, living, being, experiencing, self-talk is absent. when I am simply living, engaged in the chopping wood and carrying water of life, I, me, and my are not present. And more important, they are not necessary for those activities to occur. Those times when we are absorbed in living life, when true joy washes over us, are actually the times when the self-feeling is suspended. This doctrine of anatta, non-self, is the Buddha's most unique and radical teaching. The Buddha's enlightenment made it possible to notice that a particular substantive agent to actions is not needed and is not really present. Even though most of us commonly agree that our body, thoughts, feelings, and experiences are not ourself, and we agree that our body, thoughts, feelings, and experiences change over time, we also believe, contrary to all evidence and experience, that underneath all this ubiquitous changefulness is a unique and consistent self. A permanent seed or kernel or form that is me. Deep in there, under all the changes and growth, my essential me-ness remains exactly the same for all time. The Buddha called BS on this one. René Descartes, an old French guy, proved René Descartes existed in this way. I think, therefore I am. No, that's the BS talk again. You have identified with thinking that is occurring in mind. You could just as easily identify yourself as the king of the universe, but thinking it does not make it so. Thinking does not make itself real. Please understand, it is normal to identify what we do, think, and feel with ourself, our I, me, mine reflex. For example, I am happy. The hat is me. The car is mine. For the Buddha, the roots of dukkha, or suffering, are founded in this identification. Identifications, although conventionally accepted, once believed in, become psychologically established as objects. And they propagate a view of the world in which we feel separate and alienated from inner and outer experience. Believing in the separateness of you and I, and attempting to maintain, nurture, and propagate my identity of who I am, often comes at the expense of others. We see this unfolding since October 7th. We cause ourselves and others so much grief and suffering by this self-deception. Us and them is born in this delusion. Objectifying the other is a symptom. I still need to be responsible for my actions. Sometimes new Buddhists think Buddha advocated we annihilate an essential part of our personality, the ego. This is an error. We are not saying that. Destroying the self is not possible. It is a delusion. The Buddha recommended that we transcend the self, that we see self for what it is, a changeful convention that is useful in some places, but not in most of life. The teaching of non-self is not a denial of the experienced reality of being an individual. It is just saying that our individual personality is a fluid fiction, It is convenient and helpful in some situations. Remember, the Buddha never referred to himself as I, me, or my. He did talk about you and he and she to communicate through conventional speech with conventional understandings. So, we transcend the self. We can go beyond limitation and ignorance into freedom, clearly seeing that we are but whirlpools in a river ever flowing. We are not stuff that abides. We are patterns that continue themselves for a time. Buddha discouraged I-making and mine-making. Both terms signal egoism. We see clearly now that the Buddha discouraged egoism. Non-self doesn't mean we don't exist. Instead, it clearly sees what we are. Changeful beings, always in flux, living intermingled with a similarly changeful world. Transcending I, me, and my, the Buddha experienced unparalleled equanimity without the unnecessary illusion of owning things. Without clinging to identity and possession, suffering does not occur. Transcending self, no hatred, no delusion, no quarrels, petty bickering, conceit, dogma, slander, and no jealousy. Freedom, what the Buddha discovered was everything, not me. Everything interdependent, co-arising with all the other experiences and experiencers in the universe. He awakened to reality as it is, tata ata, a changing stream of becoming. If we live in gratitude to this vastness, and we begin to understand that we are also an integral part of that wise and compassionate vastness, we can joyfully live life and avoid the trouble and strife. Our selfish self is so good at manufacturing. We do this by living the Nembutsu. Within Namu Amida Butsu is recognition of my smallness and insubstantiality and the reality of a vast interwoven universe that is us. In Rick Hanson's book, Buddha's Brain, he observes the great thing about this. When we see non-self clearly, it means that we don't have to take everything personally. Thoughts are only thoughts and don't define us. External events are only external events that are not happening personally to us. There is tremendous liberation in not identifying self with thoughts, emotions, perceptions. Liberation lies in no static idea of who we are. Only then are we free to grow and change and really benefit from spiritual practice. Only then is there hope we can overcome bad habits of body, speech, and mind. Only then can we transcend the limits of I, me, my. Only then can we orient ourselves towards becoming more wise and more compassionate. Letting go of selfish wanting, we express this, our heartfelt wish for all beings. You can say it with me. May you be happy. May you be free from harm. May you receive boundless compassion. And may peace and harmony fill your heart. Namaste. 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 Thank you for enjoying this special presentation. We will have a Dharma service on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, broadcast on this very channel. Thank you.